us. What are we doing with our local products? Marketing and the publication, that one is very key. And we need also to know how we will be marketing and doing our publication. Whether we are going to have our platform, that one does not mean that these publications cannot be done somewhere else. But how do we market ourselves? If we don't do publications, we are not going to market ourselves. Sorry for the media failure, but my question comes to you. Was it communicated to the media? Who did we talk to? Who did we ask? Who did we tell? We are going to have those good things that you are having in Brazzaville. Did the media know? That is the maybe our communication failure. We may blame the media, but also let's look at the other side of the chapati. So that was that. Thank you so much, Daktari. You did very well, but you have brought out issues that we can keep on thinking. So, Ms. Kakai, thank you very much. I like your energy. I like what you're doing, but I would wish that you can reach more youth. We are having, in fact, yesterday I was going to a trademark, and I could see our youth, young people, younger than you, just carrying their 2 bags, walking very early in the morning. And I was asking myself, where are they going? In the food technology, you can do much for this youth. And thank you very much. But focusing on global and disregarding local, which you said, is very dangerous for our country. So we need also to look at how we are going to energize our local so that we can use our products and even the research can make impact locally. Capacity building, this one is cutting across from him to you and even to the others who have talked. We need capacity building, whether it is in grant writing, whether it is in producing the best chapati, we do need that. Roch, you have a lot to do for us because we will need capacity building in many areas. So I come to you now, Roch support. You talked about city and research, but I still ask the same question about local solutions. Are they being enhanced, or we are still going to be using drugs from outside Kenya, but we may be having our local solution? I'm passionate about genomics. That is my PhD area. Actually, I don't want to ask you anything, but there is one thing you said. Having reference gene repository for our genomics. Are we doing it right? I know what I have. Those novel genes, we have them. They are very different from the Wazungu. And I was being supported by Wazungu, and now they want to show that even in the African, we have got variation within ourselves of the genes. But now, can Kenya stand here and say we have a reference gene? We have a gene bank for our country. That is, I think, the solution that we need so that when he does something in genomic, he doesn't have to rely on Italian genomics. He have to rely on Kenyan genomic. That is the thing I can say for now. Professor Mwanja, me, I need to be capacity build, plus all the others. You have got a wealth of knowledge, and we would like to tap that knowledge so that even as we teach our grandchildren, we are able to teach them the right things. You said there is a lot of funding, but you said it is how we will ask for it and how we will base it and the impact that it will make. Last speaker, thank you for remembering Juakari. Actually, they are the best innovators in our country, whether we like it or not. Umewahi fikiria vile anatengeneza ile karai ya kupika chapati? No, I'm only asking. You know, we go far, but we have, by the way, these patents are with us. Let us help them to document. Actually, ukiwaendea vizuri, they will document. But they don't want to document. You help them. I help them. You help them. And then we are going to have a lot of innovations in our country. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. So I think I'm going to open up for responses, and I might want to minimize the responses to 5 minutes per speaker, or thereabouts, so that you can be able to move a bit faster. So I'll start from.
Okay, I think the question comes from Cindy. I'll be very quick. Talks about the challenges in terms and what I've got in terms working with researchers and policymakers and what can be able to. Like I mentioned, one of the key things in terms of the researcher, they tend to withhold, they don't want to share. Because the key thing is they take it like if you want to take something away from them. This is the challenge. As a researcher, yes, you want to publish. For me, you want to do a publication, you want to do, but the point is, if you don't share with me what you have, I cannot be able to work with it. If you come with something and you say, I want to do this, that is okay, we can do it and we can be able, because this is the biggest problem is particularly researchers, and a lot of them are within the universities, a lot of them, there's a lot of what I can call red tape or in terms of regulations within what you can do and how you can do it. And then they tend to not value people who are actually down. That is the biggest thing, which goes back to the gentleman from Nazarene, is you do not value the people on the ground. You don't value us when you're walking by. But this is the interesting part. When you're leaving your house, you want to pick the hot mandazi, which is being fried outside. That's why you queue. But when it comes to actually what you're doing, you disregard the people. You need also to now start saying this. There's a way to be able to solve this problem. I will recommend, and this was done by someone from USIU sometimes back. He used to invite me, one lecturer, he used to run an entrepreneur. And he will ask me to come and talk about how I go about my business in terms of marketing and solution providing to his students. That is what I think should happen. Invite just people to come and talk about the experience. That one will solve a lot of problem, and you'll be able to see the cooperative in terms of it. The other issue is in terms of the policymakers, and this is one of the key things, and I appreciate one of the organization, when they came to us, they asked us, what is the best thing you can, was not the money. They brought us the government. They brought us Nairobi County, and we sat on the table. And today, whatever we working with them, they came to realize, instead of us being penalized by the county government, now the county government is helping us to now be compliant. And that to me was more valuable than the money. So you have to look at, from a point of getting things and correct, is what is it that is more valuable for the person you're working with? Because if you listen, they have challenges, but they don't know how to actually articulate and present those challenges across to the key. Because one of the biggest problems we have in Kenya, in Africa per se, is in terms of the regulatory body, the people who are enforcing, some of them even don't have, it's intimidation, instead of, they are not able to give people information correctly. So the challenge, this is the biggest challenge, is people withholding data, and also people not valuing that the people without that caliber of education is a problem. I've seen, and just to give an example, I noticed about the advertisement Naivas had, you need to have a bachelor of this. But this was the interesting part. None of those had the experience required to do the work. And we need also to acknowledge that. It's not about the academic as well, but also you need the experience to be able to. And that's why I say the two comes up together in terms of the person with experience I can't document, but I know how to go about it. The researcher knows how to write and how to document. And when you put that together, you end up with a documentation that is right. So those are the key things that one of the biggest policy. The other key, the policy makers, is because of whoever is advising them, I think, and that's why the research has a gap, we should be able to address it to help now communicate the challenges that people have so that we can all be compliant. So that is the biggest problem. But one of the key things I'll say in terms to be able to have innovation and technology to move forward, researchers, remember, as long as your research is not scalable, I don't think it's going to go anywhere. if you do your research without having a sustainable ending in mind, that research will be there. And especially now, based on, I've got to manage to reach a lot of research, and a lot of people do, because some of the questions people are asking, you even ask, how did you come with the research question? Because it doesn't have any impact. It doesn't have it's not solving any solution. And one of the key things, I stopped attending Nairobi University Innovation Week, because the first thing I went, I saw an aeroplane at the gate. And I asked my question, why would somebody waste time to build an aeroplane when you can buy one, which is commercially viable, which has an impact? Find a solution to the challenges people are having locally. So innovation is also, I think, is also the definition of innovation. Proving that you know how to do something is one thing. Having to have a solution, that is an innovation. Because currently, one of the biggest innovation, and I wanted to mention, is there's a company it's called Yes Bread in the US. It's about to produce bread, I think, of, 2 million pieces a day. And that innovation is coming out of Africa from the sweet potato bread. Somebody somewhere picked it up and he saw the value. And it's interesting because it's what is happening. So that is what I'm saying, that do not undermine. Because one of the innovation today is we need to reduce the consumption. A lot of people are either avoiding or because of the war. So the glycemic index product are more viable. And I think the medical team can be able to explain. I've done to learn as much as I can, but sweet potato, which is grown, and it can be grown, this is the interesting part, can be grown in Garissa, can be grown in Homa Bay. It is one with the highest insoluble fiber. I don't know whether I've said it correct, which is also beneficial to diabetic, and it has benefit. So you can see that it's already an innovation per se, but a lot of people are just looking at it. So that's how I would be able to. So partnership in terms of those are the challenges, because we're being undermined, or people discount us because we don't have knowledgeable, or we cannot express ourselves properly. So that needs to change. Have a lot of forum, technical demonstration, and universities invite more people from the street to come and talk. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Cindy, I think your question was loaded. How do we pick? Find the right question. Identify the right research question, if it's research. If you can do that, then we need to deliberately look for champions in each one of those levels, including those who can reach out to the respective departments, particularly for the public policy side, because without public policy, sometimes we are hard-tied. We are boxing in the dark, because what we need to do, we keep our fingers crossed that the national research policy will come out, which will help navigate through these murky waters. Because right now, we are divided. You don't know who is the champion where. Everybody wants to have relevance because they're looking at their personal interest. Finally, can we help the Kenyans move away from looking at me too, and can they do something a little bit? I'm wondering, was the process patented for that sweet potato? Because an American is going to make a lot of money out of it.
No, actually,
it's gone. That one is gone. Okay.
No,
Anyway.
it's not even gone because it was done under public.
Oh, it was public good. It was a public good. Thank you very much. So, Cindy, there's a lot of work to be done. I think if we listened to your presentation this morning, we have already started the journey to making sure that we can create the right environment for us to have champions to know who to do what. Because what has been lacking was we are fragmented, nobody knew where to go, and right now, I'm very excited personally. I'm glad that I'm living at this stage where I can go and dive into a platform and not have to work so hard to walk into 75 universities looking for people. And I think the universities, again, Professor, we have a problem where we don't want this curriculum at the universities. The problem is changing curriculum in the universities is the most difficult thing. It's like going to the moon, whether you like it or not. Until the Senate approves changes in that particular curriculum, you can even go to the Supreme Court. You come back to the Senate. The question is, we need also, for us, those who are enlightened, like the people sitting in this room, to talk to our colleagues and tell them, can we change a few of the ways we do things and see whether we can help the country. Because there's a lot of happening right now. Dr. I was working with the team in Ohio and the team at the University of Nairobi, because we were looking at some of, since the COVID, there's a problem of how do we deal with One Health research component, because there's a lot of aspects of cross-border working on various aspects of making sure that you follow the protocols without necessarily breaking the law. Can we make it a little bit easier for each and every one of us? So there's a lot to do, and we hope that with what we have through African population, I think we can now pitch most of our interests. Again, please, let's not do things overnight, because we had Dr. Kremi has won some money. I want to win that money too. Can we change it there from there? Because we waste a lot of energy. People wake up the last minute to try to come up with a research proposal, which doesn't go anywhere, because before you get the signatories from the ministries, the time is gone. So let's be proactive and be transparent, but not, remember, when you're transparent, you can help one another. So there's a lot to be done, and it depends on what we are looking at.
My question was how to empower the next generation of youth to actively participate in innovation and entrepreneurship. So number one is policy, because we have categorized in our organization 8 sectors that the youth can categorize their innovations. And I think even in the wider range, most of innovations are categorized either into the 8 or 10 So in our government, each category has its own policies and regulations, and most of the time that is where we lose the passion and we also lose the idea in the process, because you're being taken back and forth. So we're requesting for researchers to come with solutions that once the paper is complete, we can lobby the policymakers who put the paper to become published, and you have the research on hand. That will really help most of us. The other issue is community engagement. We love that researcher go with the youth to the, let's say, in Kajiado County, there's issue of, they have a lot of minerals, but they lack water. So how can you help a youth in Kajiado to tap into those industries which are making billions of money from their community, to give them access to water? Because when we just go as youth and we don't have backup of what is backing up our idea or our view of things, those investors don't listen. But if we have a research paper, they'll be able to listen and invest in giving the community water and stuff like that. And then we have entrepreneurship incubators. So there's a difference between innovation incubators and entrepreneurship incubators. So we are looking for that you, in the process of the funds any researcher gets, they'll be able to set up like a small space for entrepreneurship incubators, so that the street youth who already have the entrepreneurial idea can integrate it to now put it on paper form, and even to be able to learn how to scale it up. And then the other one is industry partnership. There is a very, very huge gap between what we learn in school and what I learn from professor and the reality out there. So we love the research personnel to help us bridge that gap, that you work with the industry and then you bring the youth, give them the space to work on real life problems, providing solutions for it. So that once we have the solution for Kenya, we can scale it up now and say, because this is workable in Kenya, how can we do it to be workable globally? So that's the other area. And then of course, training and mentorship, which I mentioned earlier. So that one, we really need a lot of mentorship from the wisdom that you have a lot, and we will learn from it. And just mentorship, I know it takes a lot of time for someone to mentor someone, but I believe that when you mentor the right people, you'll not regret giving up your time. And finally, the helping of writing of grants, mobilization of funds. And before I wind up, Madam said like she works with the Ministry of Health, and she talked about capacity building for the young people. So in this room, we are planning to have capacity, what do we call it? Health boot camp in a rural county, not in Nairobi, because we do a lot of things in Nairobi, yet we leave the rest. So, and we're looking to talk about issues of cancer awareness, mental health issue, which is affecting most 90% of young people and the people in the military, the police officers. They're really affected by the mental health issues, and on top of it, the tough economic times. And then there's also a very high rates of cervical, breast, and prostate cancer in rural areas. And they don't take it seriously until it is in a stage that it cannot be reversed. So we feel like as young people, we need to take the lead of creating those awareness to the people back at home, and of course, lifestyle living. People to get back to eat organic food and stop wanting to eat pizza every day and making our main week. So those are the boot camp we're looking forward to do before the end of the year. And we will come to your ministry because we need both private and government sector to come in, because we cannot do alone as young people. And also for the community, you know, health is a very sensitive matter. We will need the right profession and right information. Thank you very much.
I hope this is on. Thank you, Kai. That's a really powerful message. I'm sure everybody paid attention to that one. They won't be eat pizza anymore.
We'll go for chapati.
Actually, it helps. Orange flesh with potato. That's why.
All right. Thank you so much for the questions. I'm going to start with what I think are the two shorter questions first, before the two others, because I have 4 in total. So the gentleman here asked about the training and if there's a virtual option. So we're focusing on capacity building, because virtual training for clinical research is available on many platforms, actually, even open source platforms. As I mentioned when I was speaking, the challenge is then the implementation. So our approach is a hands-on capacity building and looking really at the patient journey. Who touches the patient at whatever time point? And that really follows through a protocol, but the clinical care system. So this then translates that training into capacity. So unfortunately, we don't have virtual options. It's really on the job. In live situations. The other gentleman at the back asking about the 23 clinical trials and why only 2 have gone to publication. So my apologies, the others are still ongoing. It's not that they ended or that they haven't met their endpoint. If you're familiar, drug development takes about 10 to 12 years. So for a trial in a phase 2 to get to a phase 3, we're talking years. We actually have one oncology trial that's going to go on for the next 10 years here in Kenya and in Uganda. And it's a global trial. So these trials have not yet completed. They may have completed patient recruitment for some of them, but those patients are going to be on treatment. And because we're looking at critical elements like safety and long-term effects and survival, data, and as you know, especially in oncology, 5-year survival is important. So these trials are ongoing. It's not that they have abruptly ended early. The 2 that have completed are the ones that have met their endpoints, and those investigators who are participating then have published and have spoken and have published in international journals, peer-reviewed journals. So, and this published specifically on Kenyan data. So for example, the one that was really critical was one on multiple sclerosis that many people think does not actually affect Africans, affect Black people. And so outside of South Africa, this is the first data set that's actually there. So our investigators were really heralded and have been traveling everywhere to really talk about, what is the experience for patients with this specific neurological degenerative disease, but then also what's their care like, what's their treatment paradigm, etc. So I hope that reduces your concern about what was happening with the other trials. They're still ongoing, and this is something that's, I think, as a local team, is very critical for us. Not only do our investigators get the opportunity to publish on our local data subset, because this is an ask that we have from our global teams to avail that, but also during the protocol development stage, they're given an opportunity to contribute and say, does this make sense for our people? Does it make sense for how our patients are treated? Do these outcomes actually match? Do we want to add to this pool? So we're also giving our local investigators that opportunity to contribute. And in that way, that's their capacity building on how to actually design and write protocols to that international standard. So I hope I've answered that question for you. Then the very, very heavy question around collaborations with academic institutions and the value. We are currently partnering with academic institutions that are offering healthcare training services, public sector and private sector. There's immense value in it, and this really ties into the gentleman who's behind you and his question about our curriculum, right? So not only do we have the opportunity to foster that scientific thought leadership, right? Because if you remember, I mentioned that we also have avenues where we're welcoming the innovations that are there locally to come onto play, and then we partner on funding and data sharing, but also is the opportunity then to translate that practice into the modules for training. These are conversations we're actually having with the different colleges of health sciences and the different cadres of health service delivery and training, is what you're learning in the research space, which is the ideal. Transferable? Is it something that we are really thinking about that we can modify our curriculum on? Are we getting any learnings, and what are those learnings? These are conversations that we actively have, and these are one of the outcomes that we're actually looking at in our collaborations with academic institutions. We also stress for our research teams to make sure that we have different cadres of studentship represented, and both genders also represented on the research teams, to offer the opportunity at different training levels, whether it is from a nursing student to a clinical officer to a medical student, but they'll be delegated different tasks as a research team member, but it is part of their training to start really building that in. The final piece that's really critical, and I think it has really been mentioned by the two gentlemen on my left here, is the entrepreneurial mindset. So how do we move from the publish or perish mindset as our endpoint to really is what is impact? But also then what is this bringing to the institution? Because that's another thing. When we talk about academic institutions and what are you bringing to the table in a partnership? Because we want a partnership model. What are you bringing to the table? It needs to be a partnership model so that it's sustainable, so that we break this cycle of donor mentality. We need to be able to stand on our own 2 feet. We need support, yes, for various things, but in the end, we need to remain in control. And by we, I mean as Africans, right? We need to remain in control of our institutions and where we're driving. We can learn from partners. We can utilize the skills, the financial might of partners. But at the end of the day, we also need to grow our own legs and be able to stand on our own legs. So that entrepreneurial mindset, right? How does that bring in not only quality of delivery for the academic institution, but also even revenue generation? So from intellectual property, from IP, how do we take that into market and commercialization? That's one avenue. How do we actually bring in the revenue through clinical trials? And global clinical trials in the private industry is a money-making opportunity. It is for financial reasons. And how do we sustain that? Because that's also a really good way of sustaining the trained and skilled teams, right? Instead of always, I've written a grant, I've now got my grant money, now I'm going to look, who am I bringing together as my study coordinator, who am I bringing in as my data manager? Once that project is over and the money is gone, everybody goes their way. We lose that, right? So how do we retain that? And that's an entrepreneurial mindset, because it needs coming in and saying, no, we need to actually invest in not only a building that says this is Research Institute, but the people in there. And it needs every cadre, not just the scientist at the top of that ladder. So I see a lot of benefit, not only in service delivery that's impacting healthcare. As I said, we're partnering with academic institutions that are healthcare training institutions, but also these other aspects to offer and really maximize. But most importantly, that for me, is how do we transform our training. Final piece for the lady from the ministry. Thank you so much for your comments and your questions. Actually, as Roche, Ministry of Health has been a fantastic partner for us. Our current GM used to lead our government affairs department, and that's Miss Jacqueline Wambua, and so she's my boss now. So, but I think in the time that we have worked together, so when it came to the clinical trial space, when it came to the Empower clinics at the county level, working with the former First Lady and the governors, First Lady Governors Council, instituting where we saw were gaps. Because we realized, okay, we are coming in as a company that is offering diagnostic and therapeutic solutions, but we're not working in a vacuum. There's no way these products will even reach patients if the gaps are existing in the system. So we really had to think about, do we want to be a pharma company or do we want to be a healthcare partner? And we chose the latter. And this is our approach as a local team. So the foundational work that was done, for example, in the oncology space about having screening, one-stop screening clinics at county hospital levels, that was an initiative of a partnership. We do have an overarching MOU with the ministry with different things. I don't think we actually captured genomics in that. I know the huge drive at that point, because I was put under a lot of pressure and heat, was on delivery of clinical trials and how do we do that. But certainly genomics is there. We actually have an Aphrc genomics program and a team that's based locally as well, looking at that, looking at how do we build that repository. The idea from Roche's side is at an Africa level, we can't have sequencers in every country. Those machines are very expensive. So how do we then, come together to think, is it going to be on a regional level? Who takes the lead? Where is that data stored? And then who has control of that data as well? So I think these are things that are definitely in the works, but take a lot of time and commitment to get there. I just wanted to let you know that we are also working in that space. And for our clinical trials specifically, we do have a component of comprehensive genomic testing, especially for the oncology trials. And this data is available to our local investigators for the Kenyan subset to actually see what is it that we are learning. So it's not just about delivering a therapy, but really what is behind it. We know our disease is more aggressive, it's affecting younger people, it's different from other parts of the world. So what are we answering that's going to have an impact into the considerations? As you're aware, we also have an MOU with NHIF for the reimbursement of at least one breast cancer medication, which I think was a pilot phase, but is working really well in public sector because patients now have access. So when we talk about the research driving impact to commercialization, right? It's a win-win. And that's the mindset, I think it has really been stressed today, that entrepreneurial mindset. We have to think of outcomes. We have to stop thinking of outputs. You want to train 50 medical oncologists, so what? That's the question. Okay, we'll train them, then what? Like, what is your outcome from that? They can be trained, but then what are they going to serve? We have to always think down the road, what is the outcome? And it can be a win-win for every partner coming in. So that's my invitation for everybody to consider. I think everybody has something to bring to the table, but we need to continue talking. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think a lot of issues have been responded to, but very quickly, herbal medicine and indigenous knowledge issues. I think we all acknowledge the fact that the herbal products are very critical in our system. But all what we are saying is that we need to validate these products so that they can find their way into the mainstream health systems. Because there's no way a doctor is going to prescribe a herbal product that has not been tested for efficacy and safety. So the issue is how we can partner to put in science in there and make them products that then can be put in our health systems. Now, Buy Kenya, Build Kenya, I think I want to quote Bill Gates, who said that if you had only $1 left, he would put it in marketing. Marketing is everything, and we should not tire. I think we need to keep shouting about the need for us to market our own products, and eventually things will change. And I've personally seen this changing with my own products. When I started that, now I can compete with KY Jerry and the other lubricants very, very well. Now, Dr. Sidi's question, the pipeline, and I want to use myself as an example, the entire pipeline for innovation ecosystem. I talked about R&D. In my case, what I did, I approached the government, and then I approached NRF, the funding organization in Kenya. I got some money. You have to fight for it because most of our researches are individually driven. So you are the one who dreams, who thinks about, who conceives the idea. You are the one who hopes for that idea to be supported, and then you ensure that it's implemented. So that's how I did it. And then from there, I did the work at the institute using the monkeys as species. The 3 products, 2 of them, the legal requirements were not stringent, the lubricant and the ultrasonic gel. So I was able to push them to the market after that, after the approval from Pharmacy and Poisons Board and the Kenya Bureau of Standards. The 3rd one, there's no such a product anywhere in the world. And this is the only African developed product of that nature. It's a gel you put in the genitals, it kills both the HIV virus and acts as a spermicide or contraceptive. It's one of the best strategies that you can have to empower women sexually because you provide them with a product they can use without consent from the man. Now that product has, and I've published a lot, produced 3 PhDs, graduates from it, but we've been looking for money to do the human clinical trials, and we hope that one day we'll be able to get that money. When she says she's from Roche, and I know one of the former bosses there who left and went into politics, now in Naivasha, I saw now another good link. So I'll be calling upon you so that you see whether we can partner. So from there, then you need to get a partner. In my case, I wanted to demonstrate a case for capacity locally. So I'll come to your question about why I have not signed a contract with a farmer outside. So I signed a contract, manufacturing contract, with a local pharmaceutical manufacturing facility. One of the few WHO certified is called Universal Corporation Limited. They are based in Kikuyu. 52% was locally owned. 48% was owned by Finnish investment company, FinFad. Since then, they have sold most of their shareholding to one of the biggest companies in India called Strides. So we signed a contract with them. They manufacture the product. But I told them, initially they started selling, but then I told them you have to stop selling. I got another company now to sell so that I can have control. So I now have a company that sells the 2 products. So the company asked me for the order, and then I give that order to Universal, and then I supply to them. That way you have control. That company also has acted as a marketing and sales company. But I also went through the whole country marketing this product. I went to all the main hospitals, and I also went to mission hospitals, because it is very important that you engage the users, the doctors, the clinical officers, so that when they use, they can see the people behind it. And I also got the services of an incubation center called Vilglo. These are people who also take you through the journey. And I think incubation aspect, and it again has been emphasized a lot by the panelists here, it's a very important aspect because it gives you confidence and you know that you are on the right track. So far, I've spent about 5 million USD for this. And what I did, I forgot to mention this, I also brought in private investors on board. When you do that, what happens is that you bring in professionalism and you start separating yourself from the attachment of the product. So if we are going to do the human clinical trials for that product, Uniplon, then, and these are all patented products. So I have the patents and I have the trademarks and the trade names. If we do the human clinical trials, I want to separate myself completely from it so that you can remove the bias. Now, universities, I think one of the things, Prof, we need to do, as an institution, when I took over as the Director General and the CEO of the institution, one of the things that we've done is to sign MOUs with all the universities. The last one we signed an MOU with is Logo University in Migori. I went all the way to do that because we need to start having our students getting exposed to research so that you know the people who are interested in research, because research is time consuming. I spent, from the time I went to nursery to the time I did my last degree, because I have 2 postdocs, it's 24 years. So there are many people who go, and when they realize that the duration is going to take, they decide to do something else. And even many universities have actually brought me students to train, and when they see that journey, they opt to do something else. So it's important that we have people who are interested in science, and probably that's why we have a number of them, and you're asking them where they are. When, anytime you're going to career, when I talk to the students, I tell them that think about 3 things. Go into a field where you have an interest. If you do something that is not interesting, believe you me, it's not going to help you and you're not going to be productive. 2, go into a field where you are doing well, which you understand. There's no point of being an architect, wanting to be an architect, and you can't even draw the picture of an egg. Now, and lastly, look at the market, but that, to me, should be the last one, because if you go into an area where you're doing well, an area where you have an interest, then the jobs will come, and they are there. Now, a question was asked about whether I've signed a partnership with the farmers outside. In 2022, I won the Royal Academy of Engineering, a Newton Fad award. I went to London to receive it. I had done my PhD in UK, so UK is quite familiar to me. And I spent a lot of my time when I was there pitching for possible investors. And I never got anything. I engaged several farmers. One thing I can tell you, it is easy for you to export something from Africa other than medicines. If you make medical products here and you think you're going to find your way to the European or American market, you are daydreaming. I hope I can be proved wrong. Now, which is dead. But what I've done is that I recently signed a contract with Maristops International, whose headquarters is in Europe. And they're using the formulation to make their lubricant. So if you see MSI lube, that is actually smooth gel. So I've allowed them to use that, but they don't manufacture. They give me the order. So that way maybe they can find it. It can find its way into UK. Again, in European market. Again, it is true that we don't have any locally manufactured active pharmaceutical ingredients, APIs. And I think that is one of the challenges as a continent, because when you're making all these products, and that is why it is cheaper to import a complete made product from Europe and US than making it here. Because you have to import the raw materials, the APIs, and when you import the APIs, you have to pay taxes. But when you import a complete product, you actually don't pay taxes. So again, those are issues that the government need to think about, so that we can entice people to going into pharmaceutical manufacturing, because I participated as a panelist when Kipra were trying to find a solution to increasing employment in Kenya. And we looked at the issue, the area of pharmaceutical manufacturing. It's one of the areas that is neglected, that can really have an impact in terms of employment. So I think the government there has a job to do. So why we have the few of the many researchers, what are they doing? A very good question. I don't know. I think she said something here that when you look at some of the people and the kind of resources they require and they're not available, many people decide to do something else. And I think Prof also alluded to that. And that is where you'll find somebody with a PhD has diversified into other areas. Because by the end of the day, if you can't put anything on the table, I'm not going to tell my kids that I am coming from a conference and I can't put food on the table. So I think a situation where you don't meet the basics, people then tend to veer off the main training. Partnership, to me, again, and this has been emphasized by the other panelists, is a critical aspect. Let us avoid unnecessary duplications. Let us partner and avoid having to go on our own. Remember that if you want to go far, go with somebody. Don't go alone. It's only if you want to go fast to nowhere that you can go alone. Bias on products, again, marketing, and we need to keep shouting about this, and of course, marketing. Lastly, the issue of the media. When we won the African Union Innovation Award, I talked to all the media. In fact, I was supposed to address the media at JKA. And it just happened the hall which I was supposed to use to address the media. One of the politicians, I don't want to mention who, jetted in, and he actually went and he was given that room. And even the media captured it, but very few noticed it because it was put as a small caption by Business Daily. Hardly 2 paragraphs. The point is that the media has a role to play on all these things. I mean, why would it be that we have the Westgate attack and we have the Paris attack, and here we are showing, even before the next of kin know about the death of the people, they are being shown with their images. I think the media has a role to play in all this, that let us project a good image about ourselves, and because that is the only way the young people are going also to be enticed and to be encouraged to go into science and innovations. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. I think we've really had a very informative day, and it was quite loaded. I am sure most of us have been able to gain new knowledge, gain new insights. We are going to have some partnerships, some collaborations, so we are quite grateful. So at this juncture, I'm going to invite the last person on our agenda, the 2 conference organizers, so that we can end this. So back to you, Professor.
Thank you very much. Yes, I was about to ask Leah whether she forgot her Nyayoism. Yeah? Did she? By public demand, can she come and do it? One more time, please.
Thank you very much. So, as I said, mimi ni mtoto wa Nyayo, and this session was quite loaded. It was very loaded. It was very, very loaded, and I think most of us have gained a lot from this afternoon session. So tutawapatia makofi 3 ya Nyayo. 1, 2, 3. Funga, fungua. So if you've lost your energy, tea is served. Asante.
Okay. Thank you very much. I think that was really loaded, quite deep. But you can also see that we were supposed to have ended at 3:15, about 2 or so hours ago. But we are, I think, 3/4. So it means that it was quite captivating, and that people who have stayed this long have appreciated. And now it also means that there's a multiplier effect, you know, all these people times the number, yeah, it's quite a big impact from where I sit. So mine is just to thank you for sitting this long. I also thank you for, you know, bringing that kind of expertise here, free of charge, you know. If you were to quantify the kind of investments that we'd have to make, you know, to find each one of you, that would be, you know, quite a task. And so, on behalf of the organizers of the conference, I'd like to thank you. Thank you very much. I'd also want to specifically thank Aphrc, the corporate Aphrc, and particularly the project that Dr. Chiel is leading for making this possible. So let conversations not stop here. Let them continue. And we'll be looking forward to, you know, many more forums, many more platforms to continue these conversations. Aphrc says the well-being, what is that motto again? I forget. I don't want to put anyone. They say, I forget. I worked for Aphrc many years ago, and I'm glad that I'm seeing that the institution has grown and grown and grown and grown. But, you know, well-being of society and, you know, particularly from the perspectives of, you know, the demographics covering everyone and ensuring that we are in a better society than we were before. So mine is then to say that tea is served. Tomorrow, for those of us who are coming, we'll meet in the Churchill Ballroom down near the lifts through the bar at the end. And then we'll just serve tea and we'll then just go. I don't know whether some of us, I'm told, came in, didn't register. Kindly, our team there will be waiting just so that we're able to capture your presence and your participation with us. Yeah. Otherwise, I think that's it. Doctor, you have anything to say? Oh, clap for everyone. Thank you. The day is adjourned.
Yeah, but before we end, let's clap for, I think, for Tuk. Because without them, we will not be here. Thank you so much. And all the panelists.